Sorry.
I've always been fascinated with the turning points in actors' careers. And I was wondering, after your Yale years, you did a lot of films, or some films that weren't as successful as some of the more recent stuff. Was there ever a point in which you were discouraged, before cues came along, were you discouraged where your career was going?
Well, you know, to tell you the truth, it wasn't about financial successes, because I never expected to ever be, you know, some kind of financial success actor or being in these sort of big grown-up movies, etc. But I was discouraged with material, and I felt like I didn't have access to the best material, and I was scared that I was going to have to sell products, basically, as a living. Not scared because, you know, it's an honorable job. It's just that I didn't know that I was brave enough to commit my life to that at such a young age, rather than saying, well, now's the time for me to go back to grad school and perhaps, you know, look into other avenues that have to do with communication, either go to film school, for example, and just be a director and not be an actor anymore. So I thought about a lot of those things, like every 23-year-old coming out of college, you know, thinks about.
I was reading an article about Barbara Streisand recently, and they talked about the long periods of time in between her projects where she's so careful, almost to the point of paralysis about what to pick. Can you identify with that? Or, since you've won the 2 Oscars, is it hard for you to say yes to a project, or is it a lot of soul searching before you commit?
Well, I'm very serious about what I commit to and what I don't. So I don't spend any energy on something that I'm not completely 100% committed to. You know, things happen, etc. But yeah, it is hard to find material, and because, you know, traditionally a dramatic actress, I do tend to work less than most actors, mostly because every time out for me has to feel like life or death. And however, I mean, I make 1 to 1.5 films a year, which for me seems like a lot.
I interviewed Robert Redford recently, and this is a lighthearted question, about the problems of fame and being recognized. And he says for all the times he's recognized for being Robert Redford, people come up to him and say, hey, you look like Robert Redford.
Oh, yeah.
How often does that happen to you?
It happens a lot, and when people say, you look like Jodie Foster, that actress, what's her name, you know, Jodie Foster, and do people tell you that? I always say, yeah, they do, which is true, so I don't really lie about it. Yeah, the truth is I always feel like unless you're on a magazine cover that day or that month, that people's memories are pretty short-term, and we get barraged with so much advertising information that as long as you don't, you know, if 6 months goes by without you being on a cover, chances are no one will know who you are.
Okay. Jodie, you're wearing the producer hat here in Nell. I'm just curious, the Little Man Tate experience, how much influence did that movie have on you pursuing this part of the business?
Well, probably a lot. You know, Little Man Tate happened at well, it happened, or it was a part of a really big experience in my life where I suddenly became completely committed to the film business and the film industry, and really kind of thought of nothing else. And well, you have to when you direct a film and spend that much time on it, making it personal. And I saw sort of the distribution and everything that happens on the inside, and really wanted to be able to protect my films if possible, as much as possible, and that was part of why I wanted to produce this. Sure.
You know, in Sacramento, they do a lot of test screenings of movies. People come up from Hollywood. What were the test screenings like for Nell, and was that a particularly nerve-wracking experience for you?
No, not at all. I mean, you know, these test screenings, in which there were very few, were really much more about making decisions about, tell you the truth, about posters and artwork and what people like and what they don't like. And you know, I feel a little sad that these days there's this whole industry that has become so apparent to the film-going public, and that suddenly on a Monday morning they can look at the charts, and somebody who works at a supermarket or works at a hotel suddenly has access to all these ideas about how much money something made in a weekend. The only thing they should be concerned with is whether it moves them or it doesn't. And with a film like this, it was an extraordinary, I mean, even in the test screenings, just an extraordinary sense of an audience that was visibly and incredibly moved.
You know, when I was growing up, I spent some vacations on a lake and went swimming. And the one thing I remember is how cold lake water can be. And you spent a lot of time waterlogged in this movie. I was just wondering how how difficult it was to shoot those scenes.
Oh yeah, it was cold. It was cold. It was colder than any water I'd ever been in. But what I found out, which I'm sure you know, having swum in lake water, etc., is that when you get out, you feel like you're burning hot. Probably some sort of reaction of hypothermia. And I was standing out there naked with steam coming off my body, going, "Oh boy, I'm glad I'm out. But boy, it's hot in here." So I did have a little trouble putting thoughts together and actually being able to say a few words afterwards. I sort of started losing my ability to talk and all that, you know.
And one quick final question about the Oscars. What is the most surreal aspect about attending the Academy Awards for you?
Oh, well, the whole thing is weird. I mean, there's two things. The two big things that are weird is walking down a car, you know, getting out of your car while you're listening to the radio or getting really nervous or whatever, and then getting out of the car and suddenly there are so many people screaming your name. It's the name screaming, which is just, it's like being in a video game. It actually is like being in a video game with sort of cameras popping and all that. I mean, you can't really ever get used to that, can you? And then the other thing is sitting at your seat and it's sort of hot and everybody's waiting and there's all these movie stars. And you feel like you know them because they all have these, you know, famous faces and everything, and you know the lines that are in their face and the way they smile and their expressions. And I don't know. To me, it does feel like a video game, yeah.